Hi everyone, welcome back to Mathematics Specialist channel. Okay, for the textbook that we're going to use for primary level, it is published by Marshall Cavendish Education. The title is My Pals Are Here. We will use Math Book 1 until Book 6. For 1A, it is intended for the first semester, meanwhile 1B is intended for the second semester. Now let's have a look on the content for Book 1A. So this textbook is basically the third edition. So it has several improvements, and it contains of 9 chapters for semester 1. Chapter 1 numbers to 10, Chapter 2 number bonds, Chapter 3 addition within 10, Chapter 4 subtraction within 10, Chapter 5 shapes and patterns, Chapter 6 ordinal numbers and position, Chapter 7 numbers to 20, Chapter 8 addition and subtraction within 20, and Chapter 9 length. So for these 9 chapters has to be done for the first semester in primary 1. So now let's get started to the first chapter. About numbers to 10. So for this chapter, it is basically the introductory for the basic numbers. So as you know that we have 10 fingers and we call it as decimal. It starts from 0 up to 10. So they have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as the basic counting numbers. And we also introduce 0 for the not existed. So every single time when we start to teach our kids with the numbers, sometimes we start with 1 up to 10. So sometimes kids are not really knowing what does it mean by 0. So it will be best that if we introduce them starting with the 0, where it covers the not existence for a certain item. It means there is nothing left, or whatever language that you can have to introduce the 0. So the big idea here that we need the kids to be able to count, read, write, compare, and order numbers to 10, and lastly on making the number patterns. Now for the first content within the first lesson for chapter 1, we will do counting to 10. So within this textbook in the third page, you can see that there is nothing in here, and no blocks also provided within the 10 boxes provided. It means that 0 is being introduced as numerical value and in word. So by doing this, the kids need to learn on counting 0 up to 10, and then they need to be able to write down the numerical value, including the word of the 0 itself. And then they continue with 1, 2, 3, up to 4. And then if you go to the next page, they have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So let the kids see the numbers 0 up to 10. By making the pattern to be obvious, they can start to count the pictures. Let's say now for this whale, you can ask them to count one by one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you can ask your kids also to check with the blocks. So they can start to count the blocks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then you need to also try to direct their attention on seeing the number and the word. So they need to know that 6 can be written in word as S-I-X. So by introducing them until 10, then you can move further to the next part. So let's say now you can try to put some blocks if you have the blocks at home. Then you can try to take the blocks and then you can play along with them. And then you can ask them to count. So for this case, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can give your kids pencil. They need to write down on the boxes provided. So they can write down in here 5. And then for the next question, they need to count again for the blue blocks. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. After they read 7, you can ask them to write down again the numerical value 7. And then for option C, you can try to ask them again to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then ask them to write down the numerical value of 6. And then after that, you can continue with your own activity. So by putting a certain block, you can try to construct a certain pattern, and then you can ask your kids to count how many blocks that you have in between 0 until 10 inclusive. Once it works well, you can try to proceed to the next page. Okay, the next page is about a game where you need to have 2 decks of cards, and then you can play along with your kids. So consider that parent will act as player A, and then the kid will act as player B. So this is most likely like a game of match. So you need to take turn whenever you do not have the match. But if you do have the match, you can continue. So this is like a fun game. You can try to have an enjoyable time with your kids while playing. So mathematics is just something for fun. And this is really necessarily for the kids to feel that mathematics is not scary at all. And then next, if they already understood about the numbers 0 until 10, you can try to check again their understanding by doing the next page. So let's say now there's an example of 2 strawberries and they have to write down the numerical value. Try to count with your kids and then write down the numbers. If they really don't know how to write down the numbers, you can try to help them first. And then for the continuous exercise, you can ask them to do the workbook. So let's say now for option A, there are 3 lemons. You can ask your kids to count 1, 2, 3. And then you need to ask them to write down here inside the box once again. So just like in the previous example, you need to write down the number. And then option B, the kids will count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 apples. And you can write down 8. Next for option C, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 oranges. Write down the number 6. And then option D, we can count the watermelons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then you can write down the number 10. So once they can do this well, you can go on to the next page. So on this page, you need to ask your kids to count backwards from 10 to 0. So kids usually know how to count from 0 up to 10, but when they have to count down, they're having trouble on remembering the sequence. So then you can practice with your kids several times until they really know how to do this well. So you can start with the 10, and then they will say 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So if you already train your kids before grade 1, basically it will be easy for them to recognize all the numbers in ascending and descending orders. Now for this example, so let's say you need to count, there are 3 bucks. You have to write down the numerical value, including write down the word this time. So they will start on writing the word plus the numerical value. So in option A, 1 is gone, so only 2 left here. So you can try to introduce your kids to write down 2 and also write down the word. TWO. And then option B, suddenly one more is missing here, then only one buck left. So you can write down 1 and write down also the word 1, O-N-E. And lastly, all of them are disappeared, so this is 0. You can introduce to them the word Z-E-R-O. And then you can have fun with your kids on the next page with a very colorful picture. You need to count the objects and also writing down the numerical value and the word. So this is the example provided. So there are 2 ducks. So you can see that there are only 2 in here, 1 and 2 ducks. And then we need to count how many red flowers. In here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we have 10 of them. So we can write down here 10 in word T-E-N. And then the next picture we have the rabbits. We can count here on the top right corner. We have 1, 2, and 3, only 3 rabbits. Then you can ask them to write down again here 3. So T-H-R-E-E. The next picture we have the bee. So we need to count how many bees here. So let's count here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have 6 bees. So in word S-I-X. And then next we need to count how many children in here. So you can count in here 1 is hiding behind the bush. 1 is riding the horse. 1 is running through the bridge. 1 is sleeping and taking a nap here, and 1 is climbing the tree. So in total we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can write down in here 5 in word F-I-V-E. Next we need to count the mushroom. So let's try to figure out how many mushrooms. So if you see through the pictures carefully, you can't find any mushrooms. So you can tell your kids that there is none of them. So you can write down 0 in here in word Z-E-R-O. The next one we have the frogs. So let's try to count the frogs. 1, 2, 3. But then if you really pay attention carefully, you can show your kids that there is another frog hiding next to the duck. It's basically behind the wing. So you can count 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there are 4 frogs. You can write down 4 in word F-O-U-R. And then lastly, we need to count the number of butterflies in the picture. Then you can count together with your kids. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can write down now 7 in word S-E-V-E-N. So that's all for the first lesson on the first chapter. On the next video, we will learn the new subtopic. So in lesson 2, we have comparing numbers. So stay tuned to this channel. So see you again next time. Bye-bye.